Hey, it's been a while. It's Jimmy and Matthew here for the Not Network podcast. We got our guest, Mr. Geoff Burns, 3D generalist. Hope you enjoy the episode. All right, so it's been a full week since we were on the podcast. Me and Matthew honestly feel a little rusty. However, just because we feel a certain way, that doesn't mean our feelings are going to dictate our actions.
Yeah.
Sometimes, as a Mr. Geoff Burns likes to put it, you have to roll up your sleeves, buckle down, and put in the work. Now, you might ask, who is Geoff Burns? Well, you're about to find out. Shout out to all the people in Central Time because we got Geoff Burns representing on the Not Network pod. 3D generalist Geoff Burns has gone through a journey of experience and a little bit of discipline to get where he is today, which he is now a freelancer this past year, going freelance, and also taking on Houdini. No, not the escape artist. Houdini, as in Side FX Houdini, the little urchin of a procedural software for modeling, rigging, animation, VFX, look development, lighting, etc. We can't wait to talk about his journey and where he came from. So without further ado, we would like to welcome Mr. Geoff Burns. Geoff, how are you, legend?
Woo! I'm just soaking in that amazement of an intro. I'm gonna download it for sure and use it.
We have that linked in the show notes.
Yeah,
okay?
It'll be there.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the transcription and put it in my Twitter as my bio. I'm good.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Sweet. So could you give a little description to everybody who doesn't know you about what you do, and maybe a little deep dive into kind of an origin story of how you got to where you are?
Sure. So my name is Geoff Burns. I enjoy long walks on the beach.
Yes.
And my house smells of rich mahogany. I have many leather-bound books. I grew up in the Tulsa area. Lived on a farm, basically, out in the middle of nowhere. The closest house growing up, we moved a lot, but for kind of the younger ages was about a quarter mile away. So it was just me, myself, and I for most of it. Went to Oklahoma Christian University in Oklahoma City for undergrad. Originally went for engineering, made it through the first semester and got into second semester. And what I really wanted to do was build robots for NASA, because I just thought that would be sweet, right?
Yeah.
And then I got to calc and physics and realized they were not my bag. So then I thought, well, go ahead.
Wait,
yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt, but calculus and physics, don't you do that with your job now?
The computer does a lot of the heavy lifting.
Okay. I'm sorry. Go on. Continue.
I guess the problem with me with engineering was I wanted to build things, which works with 3D. I didn't want to know like how a fulcrum works to make something, right? Like all the technical stuff that you have to know to build a building or a bridge or whatever. Plus, they also scared the crap out of me. They said, quote, if they show that it's like from the 1920s of that bridge, it's like wobbling in the wind. It's
I've seen that.
Like really moving.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about if you design something that breaks and potentially kills someone, you can never be an engineer again, ever. Like they'll just take your license and you're done.
Really?
Yeah. Whoa. And I'm like, well, that sounds crappy.
Well, it makes sense though, right?
I mean, I'm not a doctor. It's like I get it with a doctor.
The
but
pressure's on.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd done pretty well in math and science in high school, but it was, Oklahoma math and science and was not college level, even though it was college level. And I I never had to study in high school, so I never studied in college. So I took about a year stint in computer science because I liked building computers, was doing it back then, on my own. This was back, I'm old. So this was back when AOL was still a thing, and internet was still dial up. Yeah, I'm old. But yeah, so I got to a point, and I think this really helped with Houdini. Now future, I got 2 semesters of coding in me and realized coding's not really my thing. Like at that point, all my friends were speaking in code and I literally had no clue what they were saying. Mm-hmm. And so then I saw the computer lab that was across campus. That was they had all iMacs, like the old gooseneck ones, like the kind of round bases with the neck that comes up, and then the screen was like,
yeah.
I think they're old. Yeah, I'm old. But yeah, so I got a job working there, and they had one class on 3D, and it was Cinema 4D, and this was back when it was version 7.
The gateway drug.
Yeah, it really was. Like I got in and it was like the heavens parted and, the God rays came down and
the God rays.
Angels, yeah, there were angels singing on high. And, if Octane Jesus had been around, he would have been like, doing his Octane Jesus thing. But yeah, so I just kind of found my niche and like, that was it. Like I was hooked. So I got a degree in graphic design because I didn't have a 3D program. But I ended up being like the unofficial TA for the same course like 3 times in a row after I took it. And I would literally just sit there and like soak up inspiration from the new students coming through and then use that to like do my own projects on the side. So like one of the like intro things was like using just primitives, model an instrument. And so some kid had done like, I don't know, like a snare drum or something. And so I did like an entire like drum set. And
that's such a flex.
I know. I didn't show him, but I was like totally soaking in like the inspiration.
For sure.
Yeah. So I really wanted to work at Pixar. That was like my dream. Mm-hmm. This is right when Finding Nemo came out. Was like right when I got in. So Toy Story came out, I loved it. And then Finding Nemo came out and I was just like, I was hooked. Mm-hmm. I got accepted to Vancouver Film School and was going to do the 3D program and chickened out at the last second and didn't go.
Really? Why is that?
Yeah, a couple things. The main reason being a girl.
For sure.
She's from Oklahoma. I didn't want to go to Vancouver and then be on the coast for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. The other piece of it was just the cost. Like it was $40K at the time, and it wasn't like, I mean, you could get student loans for it, but I'm just like, I already have undergrad student loans, and then adding $40K on top of it, like, yeah. And then cost of living and everything. So
Vancouver's really expensive to live in too.
Yeah. So I ended up just not going. And I stayed here. And so I got jobs doing graphic design. Like I didn't have trouble there. I worked at a printing press for about a year. One of the like capstone courses for graphic design was you took like a summer internship and like you did a course during the summer, it was like 3 weeks, and the morning you do like lessons and then you'd go out to this internship they set you up with for 3 weeks. And it was at a printing press and I loved it. The guys are great. It was like, total like old school blue collar, like, guys that you just want to like sit and like soak in all their knowledge, like just really cool guys. And at like the start of my 3rd week, that was supposed to be my last week, my boss goes, "Hey, do you know anyone that wants a job?" And I'm like,
Nice.
yeah, I do. He goes, well, it's working second shift. So you'd be here from like, what is it? It's like 3 to 2 a.m. And I'm like, I mean, I make my courses in the daytime and then, come over here. So I did that for a year.
Wait, what was your time schedule? You did
It
your
was
day
like
classes?
3 p.m. Yeah, it was like 3 p.m. I would get there, and I like overlapped with the day shift a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was there until about 2 a.m.
How many hours of sleep did you usually get, like, per day?
Oh, well, this was also when World of Warcraft came out. So I was getting like maybe 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night.
Jeff, you are such an inspiration to me of the no sleep gang. We're pulling an all-nighter tonight.
Yeah, Jimmy never sleeps.
Thank you.
I wish I could still do it. I really struggle if I don't get at least, I don't sleep a lot, but I've got to get 6 hours.
6 is mine too. But when you're hanging around with a bunch of old school folks, what do you think about them is so, I guess, just like, what makes you a sponge if you're soaking in everything?
So I think one of the things I wish I had access to, and I don't feel like I ever had it, like I maybe had in spurts or in different venues than I wanted it, but I really wanted to get that like first job in the industry, any creative industry, where I had like, I found that one mentor that could like take me under his or her wing and like, lead me to the promised land. Like,
Yes.
Because I realized in college, like, I didn't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so, at least my degree was so varied. I mean, it took stuff from graphic design to figure drawing to 3D, still life,
nice.
Illustration, printmaking, painting. Like I felt like a major generalist in art. Like I didn't feel like I was a designer that had only gone to like one of those top, design schools. Like Art Center is a great one.
Shout out to Art Center.
Yeah, I love Art Center. I would love to go there now that I've got more experience than I probably need to go there. But I never really found that spot. My career has been, I would get to a place that either had hired someone with no degree. And so I was like the graphic design wizard, where no one around me knew what I was doing. And I literally could do whatever. And it was perfect every time, like no feedback, no nothing. Or, or it was the opposite. They never had anyone ever. And so I literally just, would build from the ground up. But in that printing press, there were guys that had been doing like true, like typesetting, like cutting letters out and placing them by hand before computers existed, like old school printing.
Did they have a grid format?
Oh, they had everything.
Oh, nice.
Like I worked in a department that would prep files for print. So, agencies or designers would send in their files. They would be shit. Sorry, can I curse?
You totally can.
Shit. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. They would be shit. Like they weren't ready, and no one called in to ask if they should prepare a file a certain way because they just don't know. And so I'd spend, an hour or two and fix them. And talk about learning to program really well. Like I learned InDesign like the back of my hand in about 2 months.
Nice.
Because I used it every day. I wish I'd spent more time. I had a lot of free time because later at night, like I'd finish prepping customer files and then I literally just had to sit there and wait for proofs to print. And so it's literally just like sitting there going, or watching movies or, TV or whatever. It's a great job.
Yeah.
Looking back on it. But yeah, so I think that's one of the things I really missed out on, or feel like I missed out on, was having that mentor in the creative field. I had a really amazing professor who was really into 3D and he taught the 3D class. and he's since passed away. But man, I would spend like hours every day in his office just talking 3D. Like that was who he is. Like he just poured into me and poured into a lot of his students. But yeah, how to transition in the next part. So the next chapter.
That's good. That's phenomenal. I want to add that like when Finding Nemo came out, or right before Finding Nemo, I was watching some like how they built Toy Story, and it was not like they had a rig set up or anything. It was by dimension of controlling each joint on like a character, and like by dimension, like clicks, like you had to click up and down to change certain angles and certain rotations and certain sizes to the exact dial, you know? And so it was much more, I think, laborious and intensive. I have so much respect for old school animators, people, and especially in 3D, because it not only was it like that intense, but you had to like, it wasn't even rendered, right? So you were getting like a preview of like your viewport, and it didn't even look like the final thing. You would have to wait a long time for it to look like the final thing. So was that kind of your experience?
Yes. I'm not as old as like you had to have math to figure out the vectors to create something like Star Wars. Like that's the very first, use of 3D in movies is the Death Star.
Right.
That they show. It's like one little sphere, but they literally had to like plot each point on a computer without seeing it, and then tell the computer to render it. Like that's crazy. So when I started with cinema, it MoGraph was not a thing.
Damn.
Dynamics wasn't a thing. They didn't have Dynamics yet. Oh no. There was one renderer, and it was like lights and primitives, and then poly modeling and real animation. I think they had character rigs back then. I've never really gone down the character animation path, so the whole like I can move a rig, but setting up a rig, no, I just mix a move for that. But yeah, so it was like my first. So let's see, back probably my sophomore year or junior year when I got into it. In Tulsa, there was this game studio, and they made this little game called Medal of Honor, which then got picked. Yeah, which got picked up by EA and then roped into Call of Duty. And I had no idea they were in Tulsa, but my girlfriend at the time, her dad knew them and got me an interview.
Oh, that's so sick.
Wow.
Yeah. So I spent like weeks like prepping. It wasn't even like a demo reel. It was literally like stills that I was trying to get, to look good and print out and bring with me. And I had this sweet, back in the day, there was this online, like written out tutorial for how to make a high res 57 Chevy. And so like I went through and I was really big and still really am big into Chip Foose and like Overhauling and all those shows. And so I like chopped the top and chopped it and like dropped it and tried to make it look as cool as I could. And I hit render. It took 48 hours for one still. And the fucking front tire, I had turned them and it was sticking outside the fender.
Oh. That's pain.
And I had no time to fix it. So I took it.
Wow.
And they're like, they're looking at me who's still in school. And I'm like, can I come? And they're using like the lowest. Yeah. They're using like the lowest geo ever to do their video games because it's, early 2000s. And I don't know if Unreal was out by then. Probably was out, but it was real low. But yeah, they're like, we'd love to see how you would do low poly stuff. and what about this tire that's sticking through the fender? And I'm like, yep. But yeah, so I've probably been using real time, but Octane and Redshift for 4 years now, 5 years.
Really?
And it's a game changer.
Holy shit. That's a big difference. A GPU accelerated, that's a humongous difference.
It's crazy. And
wow.
it was ridiculous. Like you'd literally hit render and you'd wait, 20, 30 minutes to see something, and you'd be doing it, this big because you don't want to wait 48 hours for a full res version. And you'd be squinting at pixels, trying to figure out if something's right, or if you don't have a light on, or if it's in the wrong place or whatever. Like, it's crazy. The workflow change is unreal. But
where did you get started with GPU accelerated? Where was your information hub, I guess, for kind of like getting the new stuff, getting the new tricks?
I'm not sure where I first heard about Octane. I'm sure it was probably YouTube. Like everybody else, that's kind of like my go-to source for learning now.
Nice.
But for Redshift, it was definitely Chad Ashley with Grayscale Gorilla.
Chad, yeah.
He's amazing, and they're definitely my boys. I've been following them for I think they've been around 11 years now, and I think I've been following / stalking for 10 of those 11. So from the very beginning, where it was literally just Nick and shiny spheres everywhere. But yeah, no, I think it probably was Chad that was playing around with Octane, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you can see real time, like almost real time. And I used it at work. Like I convinced work to get it for me, and had tons of fun with it. And then it felt like 6 months later, Chad's like, oh, hey, check out Redshift.
Oh, and I'm like, nice.
So had to go back in and convince the boss to let me switch.
No, wait, you convinced him to switch?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, the boss had no clue what the difference was, but I showed him a comparison, and then that took me I don't know, it probably took me a week or so to really feel like I was confident enough to switch.
Really?
And, yeah.
Damn. It's taken it. I haven't even learned a little bit of Octane. It's taken me I'm months into it, and I don't feel confident whatsoever. Well, what was your sales pitch like to your boss?
To the boss?
Yeah, to the boss.
Hey, how was it? I'm pretty sure it was just hey, this is $500 for a year, and it's faster, and it'll be more accurate. And he's like, okay.
I need to hear.
Yeah. He's an engineer, so I was speaking engineer. Use the words faster and accurate, and that sells all the engineers.
Duly noted.
Yeah.
So being in that industry and 3D minded for so long, seeing these technological feats as they're happening of going from Toy Story 1, for example, and then did you see Toy Story 4? I'm sure you did.
Oh yeah.
And just the differences there, I'm sure you probably appreciate that more than a lot of other people who saw the movie did.
It's insane.
Yeah.
You can watch, on Disney Plus, if not on Disney Plus, it's on YouTube for sure. But John Lasseter talks about everything they went through from when they were still part of ILM, and then started making Toy Story, and the technological leaps they had to do to get there. It's insane. I mean, like you said, they were going from literally plot one point to another point in a computer and tell it to look pretty, to then having to actually do full character animation when no one had done a 3D character before.
Yeah.
So they literally created everything. And, to see it now, my favorite short they've done is Piper. If you haven't seen that one, it's the little bird. The cinematography is unreal. The next one would be I don't think it's not Pixar, it's Disney, but I feel like they're one and the same now that they're owned by the same company.
Mm-hmm.
But The Good Dinosaur, and this is one of the things that got me into Houdini too, is there's like that opening montage of The Good Dinosaur, and they chop the tree, and it like, they use the tail to like chop a tree, and it breaks in half, and then they show like the cutout pieces of the bark, and you see like the rings of the tree, like, and it's one of these nerdy things that I totally bug my wife about. I'm like, how did they do that? Was
it like a Vernard fracture?
It was, I mean, it's definitely Houdini. It's built in, like, it's pretty straightforward in Houdini, but at the time I didn't know it. So I'm I'm just thinking like how many people spent years, modeling this break, but yeah, so it's crazy. Like, I think when I was starting out, like, the idea of just making something was really sweet. Like, I remember one of the things that I made early on that I was really proud of was an Adirondack chair. You guys know what those are?
No.
Okay, so it's a very, very common like deck chair. Like, it's made out of wood. It kind of leans back. You see it everywhere in like kind of the Northeast, I guess the North. But I, found some plans online and then just like went to town with primitives and made it. And then with the Grayscale Gorilla, I'm going to plug them a lot, tutorial, I learned more about like lighting and putting, one warm light, one cool light, and, get them together. And it's just one of those things where I felt like I was actually learning something and making something cool besides like something industrial for work. Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm starting to go in circles though. So
well, we talked about something similar with the Dizzy Viper, Fabian, and Perry Cooper, of like, when you start to get into this and you're creating something in your own world, you start to appreciate the things that are in our world a lot more. Like, you'll look at something and you'll be like, wow, I wonder how that's made, or I wonder how I could make that, or how I would light that in this. So do you ever find yourself like outside or out and about or watching something, you're like, I wonder if I could do that, or how I would do that? Do you find like new appreciation for those types of things?
Oh, all the time. There was something that was going around on Twitter a couple months ago that like totally blew my mind. And they were talking about when you are like thinking through an idea or concept in your brain, is it words? So like, are you thinking out that idea in like words, or is it visuals? And for me, it's always in visuals, right? But occasionally it'll be like, just like, I'll talk to myself almost like, I don't answer myself. I'm not crazy, but sure. I'm like, should I do it this way? Or maybe I could do it this way, but I've always had those, like, that visual thing. Like, so I try and break things down visually all the time. I've taken courses and I love like photography. So I think that kind of really plays into, right now I'm doing a lot of look dev, and, that's kind of what studios are approaching me for work to do. So lighting and texturing and rendering, like just getting that photoreal look. I don't think I hit it every time, but but I think it comes from that visual library of like the knowing how light works and how light and shadow on a sphere should look like. I've seen it enough times that I could work that out in my brain.
Right. I think it's crazy that that's become a job in and of itself. And being a generalist, you can do so many things, but that's kind of the thing that people are approaching you for. And when you were growing up, I wouldn't say I grew up in a similar environment, but I grew up in Regnet, Tarrant County, Springtown, USA, with a population of 2,000 people. Like, I was far away from other people's houses and things like that. Did you notice that you had an artistic mind, or that you would notice these little tiny details in the environment and were like, oh, that'd be cool? Or did you process visually in the same way that you do now?
I think I was always no, it's good. I think I was always creative. Like, I remember doodling in class and sketching. I never like went home and like sketched. Like, I went home and played games. Like, that was my thing. So in school we had art and music and stuff were like electives. So you only had a certain number. And when I was in 6th grade, we had this really shitty art teacher. I don't remember her name, but she was
shitty art teacher.
Yeah, she wasn't a bad person.
I thought you were gonna say something else.
Yeah,
there's a lot of those out there.
Yeah.
So she had this idea to help raise money for the program by making these like really cheap like Christmas things out of like wheat that you like glue
crafts.
together.
Yeah,
like crafts. We were basically like Etsy before Etsy was a thing. And they sold so well, that's all we did for the rest of the year. Like all the way to summer. Like, no more art. That's it. Like, we were just like
that's
a
terrible.
production line. Yeah, it was awful.
Sweatshop.
Exactly. I was like, they turned you into a freaking sweatshop.
That's honestly great. I'm thinking about starting my own.
Hey, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
So after that, like, I did music. Like, I was in regular band, sweat band, and then jazz band, playing trumpet. I played trumpet 15 years.
Oh,
wow.
That was my thing. That got me through college too.
That's amazing.
I paid like almost 2/3 was music. So yeah, at the end I hated it, and it was a job. It was paid for school, but
right.
But yeah, I loved it. I wish I had spent more time doing art in junior high and high school for sure. Like that, there's something to be said about I'm a total true believer in the 10,000 hours to like master something.
Yeah.
Like, you just really have to put in the work, and it's hard and it sucks, but you just got to do it. Like, it's muscle memory. Like Tiger Woods hits his driver every single day, and after 20 years he can hit his driver, right? Like,
right.
But he's not going to do it great the first time. Like, no matter who you are, you suck the first time you do it.
Yeah.
And the 100th time you do it, and the 1,000th time you do it. And eventually you get that muscle memory where you suck less.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the goal. Suck less.
Is that what kind of, I'm just curious, because you said that you began to hate music and it became a job for you. Was it that part of it that made you kind of start hating it? Like, just the monotony of like, I hate practicing this every day, and I feel like I'm to a point of like, can I get better, or what happened there?
Yeah, I think I lost the joy. So like, I didn't want to be a music major. And that was my professors for music in college were amazing, great, amazing people. Had a ton of fun in the classes, and we'd take trips every summer to like promote the school and, play music and stuff. And it was fun. I had a ton of fun, getting to play crazy stuff like at the basketball games. That was super fun and, a blast. But it just like, you kind of reach a point, and I haven't really gotten there. Like, I feel like in 3D, there's so many new tools that come out every day that I haven't gotten to this point. But with music, like, I felt like I reached a plateau where it was like, you're either going to continue this the rest of your life and be like professional, because you're going to put in that time and that dedication, or you're not. And I was definitely at the, I don't want to. So it just wasn't a priority, right? Like, you have a certain number of hours every day to invest in stuff. And that wasn't it for me. I mean, I've got a friend that went and applied at Juilliard and decided he didn't want to do it because they offered him a scholarship and place, and he just decided he didn't want it. Like,
your heart's got to be in it.
He is amazing. Like, he would come in. Like, I remember the first time I met him, his first year there at school. He was the cool kid because he was driving like what was he driving? An NSX, an Acura NSX.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's hot.
Little speedster.
Yeah. Yeah. It was sweet. But he's like the coolest guy in the world. But yeah, he came in and like, I was never great at solos, like in jazz band. I love jazz band the most. And I was never good at improvisation. My brain just didn't think that way. But he came in and he played, and it like sounded like someone professional. And I'm like, oh, this guy's no somewhere.
Wow.
And then he turned down Juilliard.
You said something that really reminded me, or I guess just made me think about something else. You said like you either get to a level and then you go professional and you just stay there. And it's like, if you've ever been to a professional orchestra, a professional symphony, it's like it's just perfect. Like it's all perfect. And if it's less than that, then someone's going to take your place.
Right.
So it's like, once you've reached that level, like you said, there's just nowhere else to go. Are you kind of afraid of getting to that place with this?
I mean, I definitely feel like there's been, so like, to give you more backstory of how I got to full freelance this last year, like I went into graphic design because I didn't want to go to like the film school and be full 3D and be on the coast somewhere. Right. I would say a solid 18 years of my life are dedicated to being safe in my career choices. So I stayed in Oklahoma because I was dating this girl that I thought I was going to marry. We didn't get married. She's great. No hard feelings.
No beef.
Yeah. But I stayed in Oklahoma, right? Like, I didn't want to go to the coast because I didn't know anyone out there and didn't want to take the risk. Got a job at the printing press and then graduated and then got a job at this embroidery company. One of the biggest in the country. They make, they have illustrators there that like draw out different embroidered designs that then you can upload a disc to your little embroidery machine and it'll like stitch out the pattern.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, it's really cool. And I was doing all like the packaging and stuff of these like giant packs.
Nice.
And, you know, it was a small company, probably like 50 to 100 employees, really great people, and was there a year and loved it and decided I wanted to chase another girl and went to Kansas City.
Kansas.
Yeah. Was there for about 4 years. Didn't work out with her, but I met my wife.
Nice.
And yeah. And so then I got this job. I went up to Kansas City, was going to do this mission trip school. It was 3 months in Kansas City and then 3 months overseas. And so it was non-denominational program. I wasn't like, you know, with the Mormons or whatever, but I went
Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah. People always ask when I say mission school or mission trip. Yeah. No, it's just a program in Kansas City. They do house churches, and you know, you spend 3 months in Kansas City learning all about how they do it, and then you go overseas and try and do the same thing. Wow. And so I went to Taiwan for 3 months, and it was awesome and super hard because I'm a tall white guy with tattoos, and I'm in Taiwan for 3 months, and the only people that speak English are some expats that are from other countries that speak English. And then like 2 people at the church that I was working with. I'm Solid. Like, culture shock. Yeah.
For real.
And I was there with a guy that, love him. He's from, I don't even know what town. It's almost Louisiana, Texas. but never had been out of Texas before he came to Kansas City, and then had never been out of the country. So
that's a great experience for him.
Yeah,
straight to
right,
Taiwan.
like eye-opening. Yeah. But yeah, so was there for 3 months, loved it. Really met some amazing people, but realized like missions was not my thing either. I got to experience some really amazing stuff while I was there and met tons of great people, but it just wasn't me. And so I got any job I could find. So I got this temp job at a fertilizer company working on a production line.
Fertilizing. Shout out to fertilizers.
Yeah, right.
You're really making some big jumps here.
Yeah, I know. Huge jumps. But it was, a temp job and it paid bills.
Could I jump in and interject something real quick?
No, go. Yeah, go.
So it's amazing to me that you said that, you had 18 years of safeness in the context of 3D, but it seems like those experiences that you've had bolster just kind of what and I don't think those are safe, but those are just trying to find out new things. And I'd like to compare it to this analogy of like the world's just like a big ice cream tub full of different flavors, and all you have is just like your big ass spoon, and your job is to scoop out and try as many flavors as you can. So I respect all of the different experiences and all the different job types you have, because I can only imagine how much they've bolstered your knowledge in the 3D sphere of just looking at things differently and at differing perspectives. But continue.
You have a well-used spoon, in other words.
I feel like some days my spoon's a nub and not a spoon. No, I 1,000% agree with you. So got back from Taiwan, working at this fertilizer place. And again, I found myself, I really get along with these blue collar guys that, haven't been to college, but got these jobs and they, work every day, and made tons of friends, was there for about just over a year. Met my wife when I was like maybe 6 months into the job, and just decided it was time to get married. Like, she was the one. And so being with her, I guess it was like the first time I really felt like I really wanted to fully pursue art as a career. Like I'd had a couple of the, designer jobs before, but when I came back from Taiwan, it kind of felt like I was in Kansas City. I had no network other than the people from this course that I'd gone on and my ex-girlfriend that I didn't want to talk to. And so, I was really struggling with imposter syndrome, trying to get myself out there. I hadn't done art in a year. Right. So, right after we got married, I landed this job, or actually right before we got married, I landed this job at a production studio in Kansas City. And I started the day after our honeymoon.
Wow.
I was
Right
there.
to work.
Yeah. I literally we were supposed to get back on Saturday. I started Monday. Saturday, we flew into Chicago, major lightning storm, and our flight got canceled at 3 a.m. And I'm like, crap, I got to be back. So we rented a car and drove back. It was like,
nice.
Yeah, it was like, from Kansas City to Chicago, it's not very far, but it's still like a 6-7 hour drive. It's just crazy.
Persistence.
But yeah. stubbornness and being hard-headed, whatever it takes. But yeah, so I got this job, and the way I got the job is the guy started as freelance and then built it up and, got these big clients and had to hire on more people to help. And he just been hiring and churning through these people like crazy, these artists, because he was a self-proclaimed world's biggest asshole.
Oh boy.
Oh
yeah.
No.
And he lived up to that self-proclaimed title.
Oh God.
What a guy. So I was working, I started And 2 weeks later, there were 3 other guys, and they'd all been either quit or fired. Yeah. So it was just me and him. And I was there 7 months total. And there were 8 other people that had started and been fired or quit in that time.
What a turnover.
Yeah. So that gives you kind of the sample. But I was working anywhere from 13 to 18 hours a day, Monday through Friday. And then he's like, hey, don't you want to come in on Saturday?
No.
Like, no.
Absolutely.
For $25K a year.
Oh, no. No.
Jeff.
No.
And then he goes, hey, I'm going to start this bonus program. And I'm like, okay. And, he sits me down. I'm thinking, maybe I'm going to get a raise. He's like, we're going to do this bonus program. It's going to be $25K. I'm like, okay. And he's like, every time you make a mistake, it drops a little bit. Every time you miss a deadline that he set that were unrealistic, it drops a little bit. I'm like,
is he still in business right now?
He actually passed away. I found out.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, lung cancer. He smoked like a chimney.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah,
There's a dark turn.
That's so funny. That because you're talking about like things that you really should not do. Like you should do the exact opposite things of like providing incentive to people you work with instead of discouraging them. You should encourage them. I just thought that was interesting. But
yeah, so I look back now and I look at how much I learned in that 7 months. Like he had a ton of live production and editing experience that I learned a crap ton from. And I learned what kind of bosses I don't like.
That's always a good thing to know.
Yeah.
It's in the positive direction.
Yeah, for sure. But like, this was back in like Final Cut 7 days. And before, one of my big things big responsibilities was editing the commercial spots we were doing together. And before he'd let me touch the rig, I had to read the manual. And I don't know if you've seen the manual for Final Cut 7, but it's like this thick, like it's,
Yikes.
and it's like the driest thing you've ever read. Yeah. So I would just be sitting there in the editing bay, like watching someone else edit, like literally reading the manual.
Wow.
No one does that anymore, right? Like who reads the manual?
Not that I've heard.
Actually, yeah. Nobody.
The whole shit?
Not the whole shit.
Okay.
It's very helpful. I messaged people on, and that's actually how I found you out is from messaging you on Twitter. But I messaged like, how can I get better? And this one guy replied, read the manual. So I like opened the book and I just started reading about lighting, and like I definitely learned a bit, but nothing hits like experience. The 10,000 hours. Yeah. So I got that job, and then 6 months into it, my buddy that had the NSX, one of my best friends at college, he emailed me and said, hey, I'm working for this company and they're looking for a graphic designer. Are you interested? And I said, yes. Anything to get me out.
Seriously.
And 3 weeks later I started. Like it just like I said yes, sent my resume and threw together some samples of work I'd done. And a week later had an interview, and then they're like, hey, when can you start?
That's phenomenal.
So this is the guy that turned down Juilliard though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So now he's a developer and works for, I don't know if I should call him out, but he works for a well-known food company based out of Oklahoma.
So cryptic.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome.
They're very big on drive-ins. Yeah, I should have said.
Drive-ins, Oklahoma,
Sonic
food.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yes. There you go.
Got it. Good guess.
Dude, I know my fast food.
Yeah, I can't think of a single other drive-in. I don't know why that wasn't my first guess either.
But no, so network is so important. There you go. There's the big takeaway from that. So I worked there. This was for a company called Wood Group. They do industrial equipment for oil. So they would they'd make these things that from the outside looked like a piece of pipe, but they were like pumps that you would stick down a well And, you've seen videos and stuff of when they drill a well, like it explodes and like there's the geyser of oil. When they get older, the pressure is lower. So they have to actually have a pump down the well to get the oil out. And so that's what this company made. And my job was making a piece of pipe look sexy.
Ooh.
Now that's hot.
So, sexy pipe. Quote
sexy
it.
pipe.
Yeah. So taking CAD. So one of the things I learned really quickly was working with CAD.
You learned that quickly?
Not working in CAD, but working with CAD.
Okay.
Yeah, like taking engineer files and like, figuring out how to use them in Cinema.
Okay.
And I tried like Keyshot for a little while and then ended up just switching full-time Cinema because I had more control.
Really?
Yeah.
So I'm in a similar situation where I get like engineer input into my designs. What are some tips that you have, I guess, for working with CAD and trying to make pipe look sexy?
It's like a moving target. Everyone, it's very subjective. So everyone thinks, it can look sexy one way and other people think it takes something else for it to look sexy.
Interesting.
I found in that case, because all the components were internal to this piece of pipe, I just got rid of the pipe. I made it glass and then just worked on texturing all the interior components. That worked a lot. I also did cutaways and stuff like that to try and get down into the guts to show everything. The big thing though, you can make anything look good if you've got a handle on how to set up your lights.
Yeah, that's key.
Like
okay.
you don't even need textures. With a really good solid light setup, you can make just about anything look good, even CAD. And CAD is horrendous to work with. Like it's just awful.
It's not fun. It's not
fun. I mean, there's
Yeah.
literally guys like their whole job is just bringing CAD in and making it where you can use it in 3D. I wouldn't want that job.
No, that does not sound
I
like
work
fun.
with some of them. They're mostly juniors. Like that's a junior job. Is like it's basically like retopologizing, but
yeah.
Round corners are your friend because CAD doesn't do round corners. Redshift, I don't know if Octane has it, but I know Redshift has a node in the texture where you can make it round.
Octane's a little behind on kind of the times now. Redshift is more up to date with creative input. I was just curious about that. But how did that lead on to the 2020 freelance?
Yes, get into that story, please.
Yeah, super fast. So I was at that job for a month, and we got acquired by GE.
Oh,
and I'm like, oh, okay. I work for GE now. So
Love
the
that.
next year and a half, all I did was rebrand because they had to go from one company name to GE. And then after that, I looked around and realized I was the only designer that worked for GE because they outsource everything.
Ooh.
And I'm like, well, crap. I mean, they had little pockets of like offshore contractors that they would like bring on and use for like, making PowerPoints and stuff like that. But all the big cool stuff was outsourced. So I went to digital marketing. Like I got into web design and went down that path of like how to set up websites, how to set up email campaigns, like full on like digital marketing for 10 years.
Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff, I have so many questions now.
I know. So that led me to my last job where I was doing a little bit of everything, like literally a hodgepodge of everything from business cards to product renders with Cinema 4D to email campaigns and the website.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's kind of
You're
cool.
just like
One-man
walking
band.
experience. Like you just scream, I've done it. Okay.
Have you
feel
reached
like
10,000 hours yet?
I feel like at this point, I've just about done everything.
You've done it.
Like, yeah.
That's kind of sick though, because like I bet you can definitely extrapolate from everything, and especially from like when you said photography, that really rang a bell with me, because like with everything in 3D, it's like, well, everything in like I guess real world. This is so weird to compare, but like real world art and then 3D, it's almost all the same, and it matches up and it's congruent with one another. Whether that's from like type design to camera movement to even like the grains of surfaces. Like it's so weird, but it's like 3D it's like the real world, but not. It's like fake.
Yep.
And so that's really fascinating. And how everything builds upon each other.
Yeah, and actually when you reached out and asked me to look at your site and give you some feedback,
yes.
like the photography was one of the things that I was like, yes, good. Because like being able to, and Matt, I'm sure you know this too, like being able to not only see the world and try and capture it the way that you want to, or that your director or whoever wants you to, is something that you have to work on. Like it's a trained skill. And then then the next step is trying to figure out how you recreate that in 3D or whatever. Right. Because that's where I've been for years. Is I've got these amazing ideas, but I don't have the skill set to realize those in
actualize it. Yeah. And
interesting.
And that's like what Ira Glass said. It's like, it's the gap. And it's just, and that's the cool thing, is that when you put the work in, it kind of closes that gap. And back to what you said about like looking at my site, you said something that was really important to me, and I didn't understand it until I reached out to a few more people. But you said you need to focus more. You need to hone in on what you want to advertise in. And like when I sent my stuff to you, it was kind of like spaced out and random. It was like, what is this kid doing? So I'm in the phase right now of honing in and focusing. But it's so crazy to kind of see these. It's funny for me to see these dots connect, hearing your backstory and then what you told me before, because it all makes sense. It's like context.
You've been around.
You're starting to see the lines converge and like, all the,
I'm seeing the full image now, and it's really cool. And I'm honestly super thankful that you have that perspective there. And so with all of that, going to freelance, and especially during like a world pandemic, how did that kind of affect your mentality over approaching it? Because I could only guess the discipline that you've had over the many years of experience you've had could only bolster, I guess, the strides you made.
Sure. So
sure.
Tons of discipline. There's like spurts of discipline.
All you need.
No, so I think I decided I wanted to do freelance like full time in 2019. And so like I got the Freelance Manifesto. If you don't have it,
yes,
get it.
Good
it's a good book. It's a really
Joey
good primer.
Corman. Yeah.
Really, like, I bought it and it took me a year before I read it. Like I'd read it a couple pages and then like, squirrel, like get distracted.
This is boring.
And then back in October 2019, I finally so little history. We got a new boss when I was at my last in-house gig. My boss was amazing. I loved him. He'd been 45 years in engineering and then decided to switch to marketing. Nice. No experience. had been in marketing 1 year when I started. And
good for him.
He's amazing. I love him. He's a great boss. Of all the bosses, that one of the things I love about a boss is a really high EQ, which is emotional quotient. Mm-hmm. So being able to sense, and empathize with your employees, like that's huge. And it's very rare, especially the higher up in corporations you get. because it's all focused on me and not my employees. And for an engineer, his was off the chart. Like I would say something, be worried about something else, and he'd just be like, don't worry about it. We're
That's
good.
so weird for an engineer to have that too.
Right. Because, socially, they're usually not there.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that's fine. That's not what they pay him for. But yeah,
Exactly.
so great boss. And he would, I would make a recommendation. So like I recommended getting Cinema 4D, and he said, sure, go for it. I recommended Octane and then Redshift, and he's like, go for it. Like really had fun, just the two of us building up a marketing department for the company. And just having fun. Like it was a lot of fun every day. So we finally reached a point in the company's progress where they decided they wanted to hire someone to replace him. And they passed me over and hired this lady that was not my favorite.
Oof. Spill the tea. Get into it.
She's still there. So,
Oh.
That pause just said it all.
Yeah. We know how you feel about her.
You spoke words with that silence.
Yeah. So, I obviously, having my experience, 3 weeks after she started, she fired my colleague. Granted, my colleague had issues that she was working through, but yeah. So I look back on my time with the production guy, the world's greatest asshole, and I'm like, oh, this seems familiar.
Call back.
I know. Yeah, I know what happens next. So I really dove into Freelance Manifesto and thought, okay, well, other people are doing this, maybe I can't do.
Mm-hmm.
That was my dumb idea. So I started emailing any studio I could find in Tulsa. Time, that's where I'm at. Might as well email. And, I got a couple replies, nothing really solid. I had this small industrial animation company here in Tulsa that had me come over and talk to them. And I'm like, sweet. So really nice guys. They do a lot of oil and gas animations, really heavy 3D Studio Max, which I don't do. But yeah, we talked probably November-ish, and never heard another thing from him. It was fun to meet him, and I thought, it is what it is. So fast forward to 2020, and after Christmas break, come back, and I knew my first day back, I wasn't going to make it. At the company, I was at that point where the stress was so bad.
The brink.
I couldn't. Yeah, I just couldn't. And I told our HR person this when I turned in my notice. It's been so bad that it's so hard for me to put my clothes on to come in every day. And I went from loving the job every day
sucks
to that extreme.
Yeah, that transition. Damn.
Yeah, it's just awful. And it, having been there so long, I was there almost 2.5 years and building that department from scratch, it was my baby. And then
Very
they
bitter.
change. Yeah,
bittersweet.
It sucks.
Mm-hmm.
But so it just kind of all came to a head March 4th. And I don't want to go into details, but maybe off the podcast I will.
Shit went down.
Yeah. But so I turned in my notice and they said, well, we know you've been really stressed and it's not been good for you. So we'll take your 2 weeks. Why don't you just go home now and we'll pay you for the 2 weeks? And I'm like, no backsies. I'm out.
Yeah, right.
So I'm walking to my car with my last box and I got an email from that studio in Tulsa. And they literally said, when can you start?
Wow.
Yeah. So I started the next day.
Oh,
So I went
Nice.
from full-time to full-time freelance in about, I think I had half a day off.
Wow. But that's good though. That's good.
It was great. That was March 4th. And then March 23rd, lockdown.
Oof.
And I went from having all this work to not having any work.
Man.
And the guy that owned that place, amazing guy. He did his best he could to keep me, in the money. But I was making $30 an hour, and just, after about 3 weeks of lockdown, that was it. Like, just no more work for me.
Mm.
And so, every now and then, like every couple of weeks, he'd like come back and be like, hey, I got this like quick project. And it was like, 5 hours. And so around like the middle of April, I'm like, after I'd played through every Assassin's Creed because
Nice.
I had time,
Yeah, use it.
Right. I finally was like, I need to do something. And I'm like, I want to do 3D. I know I want to do 3D.
Mm-hmm.
Where can I make the most money? And I'm like, Houdini. They make tons of money a day. And I looked at Houdini a couple times before. Like we're at version 18.5 now. I probably started around version 16. So 3 or 4 years ago, like I downloaded the trial. The great thing with Houdini, they have a free trial that lasts forever.
I did not know that until like a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Houdini Apprentice. Go download today. Like, you just sign up for an account, you download the whole program. The only thing it restricts you to is you can only do like 1920 for your final output, and you can't use Redshift or other third-party renders, which stinks, but it's free forever. So, and you can't do commercial work with it, obviously. But I was trying to learn another simulation program that's more native with Cinema 4D. I won't put on blast. And they have a 15-day trial, and then it locks you out. And I'm like, there's no way I can learn this in 15 days.
Rip.
And it's $800 for the first year. And I look over at Houdini, and they've got an indie license that's $260. And I'm like, what? Like,
Make
the learning curve is steeper. Yeah, but
Right.
like, I don't have money, so I don't, I can do the free version until I get a job, and then I could pay $260 versus $800.
Right.
And I didn't have money. Like, because I was freelance at the time of lockdown, I could not get unemployment.
Oh,
Yeah.
And because I had quit,
yeah.
they had like a little section where you could put because of emotional reasons, but you had to have a letter from a doctor telling you should quit. And I'm like, well, I mean, I went to HR 4 times about it before I quit.
Right.
But I'm like, how likely are they going to tell the unemployed people that? Yeah. So my wife is a teacher, so she was teaching. So we lived off of her Oklahoma teacher salary, which is nothing, for 7 months. And then right at the end of July, I finally got some of the pandemic relief unemployment, and it backdated to March. So it was like this giant check from unemployment. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah, that's amazing, actually.
yeah. So that got us through. But yeah, 2020 was amazing and like the hardest thing ever, all wrapped up in once. Pandemic aside, like that's a whole separate thing.
Of course.
But yeah, so I dove into Houdini mid-April.
Specifically May 23rd. We have it in your tweets.
Yeah.
Nice.
Crazy.
We've done our research.
That's awesome. That's just when I started posting.
Yes, true. So you learned it first and then posted.
I started actually like learning mid-April, and my wife said, look, you need to do this. Like, she gave me the freedom to do it. Like, and I think she's the greatest. Like, she's the best wife
shout
ever.
out to her.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Like on a teacher's salary with 3 kids and me not working, I went from making $72K a year to nothing. And then, right. It's huge. Right.
Scary.
So we were at almost 115K a year combined, and then just down to 40 with her salary. Like that's a giant drop. But yeah, so I dove in, and I literally would sit on the couch because she'd given me the I think this is where the determination comes in. She gave me the freedom, so I wasn't going to waste it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I paid $30 for a month of Intagma, which if you don't know Intagma and you want to get into Houdini, they're amazing.
They're learning software, right? Or learning course?
No. Yeah. So they've got Patreon. So they got tons of free YouTube, but their Patreon's $30 a month, and it lets you into everything. And they have a course called Adding Houdini to Your Arsenal or something like that. And it's literally like, you're in Cinema 4D and you want to start using Houdini. Here's 20 videos that you watch. And so I spent 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, sitting on the couch, watching every single tutorial that they made. And I started getting into like trig and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, I got to stop.
Dear God.
We're getting back into math that I'm not good at.
We've come full circle, finally.
Yeah, right. But like, it runs off of this code that's called Bex, and it's based on C that I learned in college. Like everything started to coalesce, right? Like
nice.
I find like I almost have a minor in computer science just because I stayed long enough. Like not because I was good at it, but I have enough courses. And it felt like everything finally started to like come together. Like all the roads were leading to this point, right? I think it was my time to learn Houdini and go that path. But so like May, I dropped the first thing that I'd done in Houdini that I thought was halfway decent. And then just started trying to have fun and experiment and get enough together to make a demo reel. Like that was my big goal, because I wanted to see if I could go freelance, make enough money so that she didn't have to go back to work if she didn't want to.
Wow.
Like that was my goal. So I set the timeline of trying to keep her out of having to go back to school, because this was, in the heart of the pandemic. And they're like, oh, teachers are going back to school. And I'm like, I don't want my kids going. Like, why would I want my wife to also go? Like,
why would they do that?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it took me from March 4th to August to finish my reel. Like I took my time. One of the big stopping points was I decided in July or June that Side Effects ran a contest. It was like a daily render contest called Who Lie. And it was so dumb for me to try and do this. But I'm like, I'm going to do it. I didn't know anything. Like I barely knew how to do anything in Houdini. So I found $260 and paid for a license just so I could use Redshift. I'm like, at least my renders will look pretty. Whatever they are. I know Redshift, I can figure that out. And so over the summer, I also got involved with, have you guys heard of Monday Meeting?
I have not.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So Monday Meeting is a weekly podcast, if you will. They do a group Zoom call and anyone can talk. It's all like motion graphics focused. So we talk about like freelancing and working with clients and taxes and like literally everything you can think of.
Taxes.
Yeah.
Friggin' taxes.
Like this last Monday we talked about, what did we talk about? It's been so long. It was yesterday. We had this guy on that was talking about his app, and he used to work for Maxon and now he's making apps, and he's got this app. It's freaking amazing. That lets you version control Cinema 4D files. Like amazing. Really cool stuff.
So what does that mean for somebody who doesn't know, like me?
So
Like myself.
So like think of your typical workflow with Cinema, right? Like you start a file, You save a file, and then maybe you save another version of that file.
Right.
And then by the time you're done, you've got like
20 different files.
Yeah. Right. What if you want to go back to the first one? Or what if you want to go back and pull something from the very first one, or say the fourth one, but you can't remember which one it's in?
Oh, okay. So it kind of merges and you can pick and choose.
Think of it like Apple's time machine, where you can like flip back.
Ooh.
It's not as pretty yet as that, but it's still like it's got a timeline.
Is coming.
Yeah, it's got a timeline, shows like highlights of where it was saved, and you can like jump back, grab something, and then jump forward and resave it, so it's all there.
Oh, okay.
It's really slick. But anyway, so a lot of random stuff. Well, one thing that Monday meeting started was a daily call. So it was literally like, hey, if you're doing work, come sit on the Zoom call with us all day. And it's like being in an office, right?
That's awesome.
That's neat.
It's amazing. It totally like changed everything and was the thing I needed to really kick my butt in gear for getting my reel done.
Right.
So July 1, I'd say I probably had like 5% of my reel done. After August 5th, I was like 98% done.
Damn.
And I spent another month like tweaking. Yeah. And a lot of it was just being in that group. Like when you're literally on a camera sitting, talking to other artists that are actually doing work paid.
Keeps you accountable.
And you're not like that accountability for sure.
Yeah. It's also like that same vibe because and that's why I really wanted to talk to you is because you're also in Oklahoma. And like you don't hear a lot about Oklahoma having the biggest motion design industry, you know? Right. It's always like Chicago, LA. Or
I joke that I'm the president and founding member of the Oklahoma Houston or Houdini users group.
Nice. Well, like it's true.
Like there's no one else
that's doing what I'm doing.
And it's so like I was experiencing this like during COVID of me learning a software, but also me being in Texas and not being in school. It's like nobody else knows what I'm talking about. When I say the name Beeple, and now everybody knows Beeple because of NFTs, but when I say Beeple, like nobody really knew who I was talking about, or like EJ Hassenfries, or Octane Jesus, and it was so hard to communicate to other people. So that's a lifeline right there, having a community on call and just like chilling, like good vibes. Good motion design. Like, what else do you really need in life?
Right. Yeah, but that community like really helped. Like, not only was it great to find a place where I had access to other artists that were in the industry and I could like tap into their experience, but like just have a community. Like that was the biggest thing. Like, I think that's, people say it all the time with freelancing that, there's a lot of alone time. And I think it depends on, if you're working closer with a studio or if you're doing direct client stuff. Most of mine's been working with studios. So they pretty much like pull you into their system and you're a part of the team for a set period of time. So but you've got to have that community, right? Like you got to have that connection,
right? And vital. What I've heard from a lot of studios is that when they bring in freelancers, or at least the good studios, when they bring in freelancers, they really try to match. They really try to bring them into their vibe. So it's like everybody's on the same wavelength. And exactly. And so when you're on the same wavelength, like your communication is like on point, and that means you're getting work done like super efficiently. It's not only helping the company, but it's also helping, each individual person, because when they're feeling good, they do their best work.
Exactly.
So it's like a win-win, like a triple win.
Yeah, it pays to treat your people right.
Yeah.
Totally.
That's wild, dude.
Unlike the world's biggest asshole. Jeez.
So let me tell you how I went from a reel to working. Because I think that's a story in itself.
Transition. Yeah. Let's hear it.
So remember, I did digital marketing, and one of the things I was in charge of was emails, like sending emails to prospective clients. I was also the one that would see all of the emails come back in with customers saying, hey, I'd like to buy something. And our sales team would be like, oh, well, here's a distributor, go buy it from them. Like that was the level of customer service they were given.
Oof. Nice
and
DTC.
It annoyed the shit out of me. So I'm like, nowhere else, like everyone's expecting Amazon and they're coming to us saying, here's a product, I want to buy it. Oh, sorry, we can't sell it, go here.
Wow.
Like it just, and they're not the only ones. Like I saw that throughout my entire career in-house and corporate. Like that was just the way I think it's more industrial. Like that's the mindset, right? Like use a distributor because I don't want to deal with all the paperwork. But so I said, like, I'm going to send emails and apply for jobs until I get work. And I'm literally going to apply for every job I can find and literally send emails, cold emails to every studio I can find.
Yeah.
In September, I sent at least 25 emails a day. And I literally, like, the same email, I would change one or two sentences and it was the same email, just copy paste. And mailtrack.io is amazing. It's mentioned in the Freelance Manifesto.
Yeah, I got hunter.io.
Yeah. And I literally would just like, I would mine like every like art of the title, looking for studios that did anything remotely close to what I wanted to do.
Uh-huh.
And I would send them a link to my reel and just having a really catchy, and this is one thing I pulled from Freelance Manifesto, the intro. So your very first words that you say to them and the subject line are what has really paid off. I started every freaking email with howdy.
Wow.
Yes. And I cannot tell you how many studios responded just because of howdy. Like literally studios I never thought would give me the time of day, sending me emails saying, hey, I think this is my first howdy.
Oh my God.
I'm
noted.
Like,
so we're changing.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got our subject lines. We almost got our subject lines down. We're still learning, but subject line is important. And that first, I totally forgot about that. I need to read that book again. I took like a bunch of notes over it, but like I screen recorded. I got this off of like Amazon Kindle. I just screen recorded the whole thing, canceled my subscription, and then I had the whole book. Sorry,
That's
Joey. Maybe I pirate some things. Maybe I don't. This isn't going. Nobody's listening to this. Nobody will know. But that book's amazing. You're absolutely right. And that's key information.
Yeah. I think if you've never experienced true digital marketing, like that's a really great primer and will give you the tools you need to get yourself out there. Like it's that part of the business is, I think, like the business of being a business is like one of the hardest things to learn, especially if you're creative. Like it's just not, it doesn't come second nature. Right. Like there's people that have like MBAs and they do business and that's their lane. But like, I feel like the last 10, 15 years, like that's what I've gotten is like a mini MBA. So I just try and use it and squeeze as much out of that experience as I can.
Yeah. Cause I mean, you're representing yourself. You are the brand of, of
you're
Geoff
the business.
Burns. So yeah, and that's,
go ahead. My number one thing I say to my clients and I try and do every day is I want to make their job easier. So if I'm contracted for an 8 to 10 hour day and I can work 10 and a half and crank something out that's going to make their day easier tomorrow, I'll do it. And I won't charge them an extra 30 minutes.
Wow.
Because my hope is that it'll pay itself off later, like more work, more projects, all that stuff.
You're building a relationship.
So yeah, it's all about relationship, right? Like
100%.
They don't want a freelancer that's so fucking full of themselves that they're just like, oh, I'm not going to do that. Or, I just hit 10 hours. I'm out. You know, they want someone that's going to partner with them and help them finish what they're working on.
Yeah.
So that's what I try and be. And I'll do literally anything they want me to do.
I forgot who the author is, but we talked about this on our last pod with this guy. His name is Chris Vidal. It's a book. I don't know if you read, but I'm gonna guess you do read by the bookshelf.
I've read
in the
a couple
background.
times.
Once or twice.
Those manuals.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
there's a book called "Ego is the Enemy." I don't know if you've heard of it, but
I haven't, but I'll write it down.
it's by I'm blanking on his name. His first name is Ryan. That's all I know.
By Ryan.
Yes, by Ryan. Ego is the Enemy. I haven't read it myself, but that is probably one of the next books I'm reading. But it kind of, from what I've heard, it pulls a lot from kind of the Jocko Willink thesis of put your ego is not important. Ego is the downfall of man. Like anything with ego would be better taken out in a business sense. Like, do you have to have pride in yourself and your work? Yes, absolutely. Confidence is key, but also, you know, there's a fine line between confidence and cockiness, and cockiness leads over to that ego, and that's what you can't have. So better be on the safe side and just be humble about your shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
On books, read everything Gary Vaynerchuk.
Bro.
You hit him. That's his guy.
Dude, that's my
Just
man. That's my man. Jab, right
blanking
hook?
on the name. No, it's
Is the one before that or after?
The something economy. It's like caring or
I know exactly what
crap.
you're talking about.
Yeah. He talks about he talks about social and like and he talks about it in like basically all of his like podcasts he does, but what do you call it recently being like a year ago, because I read all his books and then like took a break and
you got to do that with him
stuff.
though. You got to do that with him.
Yeah. But I actually, when I was at GE, he came and spoke, so I got to meet him.
Whoa.
And he gave out copies of Jab, Right Hook, and I never read it. Like it literally sat on my shelf behind me for like 7 years. And then, you know, I decided to go freelance. So I'm like, I should probably read that. Is it the caring economy or something like that? But anyway, he talks about
That's
like going that extra mile to actually, like, it's not even about selling shit. It's about like that relationship, right? Like you want your client, partner, or whatever to be better off than you are. And I try to do this just naturally, like even at like my in-house jobs, I always wanted to leave that company, regardless of how I left, better than it was when I started. And so I think that just kind of comes from my personality. But did you find it?
Yeah, it's called the Thank You Economy.
There it is.
Okay, I haven't heard of this, but I'll look it
Really
up.
great.
I've only read How to Crush It, or not the one before Crushing It.
Crush it. Just crush it.
Yeah, Crush It. And that was
That's
really
amazing.
great. I got that from a library, and I was like so stoked to actually just get into it, and like, whoa, people work like after they get off of their day job from like 7 to like 1 a.m., then wake up at 7 and then, you know, repeat their daily life and then work in the night. That was revolutionary to me, because I've always seen like authority figures in my life, not the parents. The parents are the best, but I've only seen authority figures like once work is over, it's time to relax. And that's what you do. You just plug in and you zone out. And so if you want to get somewhere, you have to do the work.
Always got to be working.
Yeah, it's time management.
Some capacity.
Yeah, so I will say I was like hardcore, like hustle, like wanted to get the tattoo, everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure it's good anymore.
Yes. There it is. That's the key. It's balance. There are seasons and there are different times you need to be like, I need to go really hard on this, and then I need to unplug. I need to relax.
Absolutely. Seasons for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think the hustle mentality and the hustle culture is like probably like one of the levels of hell, because it just feeds into that imposter syndrome. It feeds into having to post to Instagram every fucking day because everyone's expecting you to. And if you're not, then you're not a real artist. And like, fuck that. Like, So I hustled my ass off in 2020 to get freelance working, and it worked. But then as soon as I got my first paid gig after I finished my reel from the emails I sent out first week in September of 2020. And then it took 30 days for me to get paid.
Yeah, that's
30.
the worst.
I love that.
The worst.
Yeah. It was a 4-day gig, but I had the most fun ever. I made a domino, like falling over sim, and they used it on an ESPN thing. And I was like,
That's
oh
wild.
my gosh, I just did
That's dope though, for real. Really cool.
It was only shown on the ESPN Plus app. And I'm like, oh,
The premium users got it.
yeah, but whatever, it was
Real
seen by
fans.
probably tens of people.
Hence,
But right after that, I got booked with a studio out of Chicago, and I've been booked with them since, like, going on 6 months now.
Wow, that's
The
awesome.
same studio, and it's amazing. Like, and everyone's like, "You're still with them?" And I'm like, "They keep paying me."
yeah.
So I'm loving it. Like, they're really great. They're super chill, and it's the point now where I'm doing not most, but a lot of their look dev for some pretty big brands that I can't talk about, but
For sure. That's
have
great.
a lot of fun. And I look back a year ago, I was stressed out of my mind. I was bringing all that stress home, and my wife was not happy. I was yelling at her kids all the time because I was so stressed and just couldn't manage it,
Mhm.
and I was super unhappy. And now a year later, living the dream.
All because you took a chance on yourself. You believed in yourself.
Yep.
You put in the work. And by the way, that reel, I watched it a couple of times, and I really, really like it. So great job on that. Obviously, you don't need to impress me with it. You've done its job, but I just want to say,
Yeah.
it's great. It's really good.
It's cool to see
It impressed me.
what you've done with just learning.
Yeah, and hard
throughout the
work
years.
and experiences. Like, it's fascinating hearing all of the things that you've done, and then saying that it seems like it's been a wild journey. And do you kind of feel like you're on your path now? Do you think this is Geoff?
Yeah. I had a really great friend that I met through when I worked at GE. And he runs his own company now out of San Francisco. We spoke back in like August, like right after I'd finished the reel, or was about to finish the reel. And he asked, I'd never been asked the question. He's like, do you like what you're doing? And I'm like, yeah, I love what I'm doing. Like, I feel like I'm doing the best work I've ever done in my life. And, I'm not by any means doing work that's like a movie or, something that's going to be seen by billions of people around the world. That's not what does it for me, right? Like, I've wanted to call myself a 3D artist, like full on professionally, for almost 20 years now. And so it's like the realization of that dream, and every day feels fun. So I think if I can hold on to that, like, it doesn't matter if I'm working on, some industrial product that, I don't understand or no one will see, but I'm having fun.
Okay, so we have this segment, part of our podcast. It's called Explain This Tweet. Did we copy it from Sean Evans? Maybe not.
bit.
The world will never know. But we went into a deep dive on Mr. Geoff Burns' tweets, as we said before. And for context, you were quote tweeting this guy called Crossfader with an X.
Okay.
X
Yep.
Ross Fader. Okay. He said Lucas, exactly.
Yeah, he's
Shout
a
out
great
Lucas.
guy.
He
He
said,
works at Sony. He's a great guy.
Oh,
okay,
nice.
shoot, I just followed. Can we all celebrate the people who are making it, the men and women that are just doing good in our industry, every industry? Can we stop demanding the attention of the talented and let that rest? To be on top isn't for all. There are more of us doing our best every day. And what you said, Geoff, is, it's a little bit, but there's more to life than being the number one in your industry at the cost of everything else. An award, a prestigious title, the job at the studio of the moment, millions of dollars a year, whatever happened to being content with what God has given us. This is more in life than all this stuff. I may never do work that gets me fame or noticed by industry leaders, and I'm okay with that. I will continue to learn and grow and do the best I can every day. It's okay to have different paths and priorities in life. Don't let anyone ever tell you how to get from point A to B. Embrace the journey and enjoy every step. Unplug and spend time with the ones who matter most in your life. And for the love of all that's holy, take a break from social media too. Rant complete. That is all.
That is all.
That was a lot.
But it sums up perfectly what we're talking about. Mic drop. Yeah.
Mic-
Everything. You threw that mic on the ground.
Yeah.
And it's such a contradiction to what you were saying earlier about the hustle life. And that's why it's these seasons, they come and go.
Yeah.
And it's okay to just enjoy what you do and not be on the top all the time.
Yeah. My death sentence at GE, and this was 2017. So this is before they went downhill really bad. If you watch the news at all, like they went from like 100% to like 50% in a month, like just really bad. I had a meeting with my boss, and the boss goes, "Hey, where do you see yourself in 3 years?" And I said, "You know what? I'm really loving what I do, and I don't know that I see myself anywhere else." And in that culture, their expectation was every 18 months you would have another role, like you would move up, always moving up, never down, never sideways, up. So they would totally shift the organization to make a role for someone to move up.
Oof.
It just horrendous culture. I never really fit in, creative and corporate, like it just doesn't work.
That's a strange hierarchy to do things by too.
But that was my death sentence. And there are definitely seasons where I've really, really wanted to do something, and I'll put everything else aside and go for it. But at the end of the day, like, I just want to be happy where I'm at and content. Like I feel like if you can find that peace and that contentment, that's all you really need. Like, what's the most important thing to you in your life every day? Like, that's figuring that out is second only to who am I? What am I all about? You figure those two things out, and then everything else just kind of falls in place because you're centered on those two things, right? So I am a 3D artist, but first and foremost, I'm a husband, and then I'm a dad, and then I'm a son and a friend, and then I'm a 3D artist. Like, that's my priority chain.
Yeah.
Right? So everything's motivated by those priorities.
That's a phenomenal way of prioritizing, is by titling that position.
Well spoken, well put. Good advice. Life advice with Geoff Burns.
There you go.
We always get deep in here.
Yeah, I mean,
I love that.
I'm like feeling good. I'm feeling all warm and fuzzy inside.
There you go.
I'm feeling something.
So let me ask some questions,
Please,
for you guys.
Okay. Let's
strap in.
Is that okay? Is that okay?
Yes,
I don't wanna
please.
format.
This is your
Okay.
time to shine.
This
Talk
is
away.
your episode.
Let's,
Are you
What?
kidding?
let's hear it.
All right, let's start with ages, because I know you guys are younger.
Oh, yeah, we're 20, by the way. Wait,
Both
are you
20.
20?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're
Awesome.
I should know that.
Matt, how do you
Yes.
have, you said you have like 6 years experience
Yeah. So I started
at
volunteering.
20?
Yes, I started volunteering with my church when I was 14, and I was operating robotic cameras for the worship services. It's like I guess you could consider it a mega church. And so they were pretty extravagant, and we had cameras and amazing setups and amazing productions, and it was a crazy opportunity for me to be able to do when I was 14. And yes, I did start when I was 14. So I do have 6 years of
That's
experience. Awesome. I started there with robotic cameras. Then I learned jib and then handheld and started directing live shows, and all of that culminated from being a volunteer there when I was 14.
That's awesome.
So yes, that I was not lying about the years of experience.
I wish I had started that young. Like that's one of the things I really like. Of all the other regrets I have, and that's another thing, is I try and live regret free as much as possible. Yes. I wish I had been drawing when I was little, like all the way through, like, and just had art like more.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's awesome. 14.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you're both 20. You're getting in there. You're in the industry. So where do you want to be in 10 years? This is the worst question.
It is the
I'm
worst
sorry.
question.
Yeah. But where do you, like, if you could pick someone now that you look up to as far as what they do, who would it be? That'll help you answer the question. And why? Why would you select that one?
Okay, I would say, here we go. I'm gonna say, shoot, I thought I had some. I mean, there's different aspects of people's life that like I really admire, and certain positions that they're in. So I don't think it would be like one person. Like maybe for career wise, you know, I would love to be like, let's say, what's this guy's name? One of like the NFT artists that we just love and adore. I'd love just to be making art and just selling it, but actually no, I take that back. I'd love to be making art for like a really badass. Okay, ABC. I would love to work for ABC. Like in 10 years, if I was working for ABC, I'd be so freaking gassed.
You're like next door to them.
So
put on a mask and go tomorrow. Like,
just go.
It's crazy. I've actually talked to some of the people who work there. I've talked to Chad and actually Houdini Mark. But it's maybe that imposter syndrome of like I look at my work and I look at theirs and I'm like, this is not good. And I've looked at like the personal stuff that they've done and I'm like, I could be learning so much. And I know Barton doesn't accept young guys specifically because he likes the experienced workers who don't have egos. I've went into a full depth research. I really wanted to work for them.
I did too. We almost moved to Dallas. So
no shit. Really?
In March, I was planning on like coming out in the industry, like trying to like break out. March 23rd of 2020, when they were going to have their open house. I was going to come down to Dallas.
ABC, DFW, C4D, whatever.
The DFW, C4D.
Oh my goodness.
And then the ABC.
You were going to be there?
Meet everybody.
Bro.
I had I was driving down. I had hotel, everything. And I was so pissed when they canceled it. I totally get it. But I was so pissed.
They had EJ. They had people coming.
They had everybody.
They had everybody. Oof. I was so mad. I was talking to my brother. I was talking to our friend Allie. I was like, guys, come on. This is like a step in the doorway. They're inviting people for free, basically. For these like leading industry. Dude, I was gonna meet you, bro. What is up? That's crazy.
Yeah,
it's so wild.
So in August, I heard through the grapevine, through Slack, basically, that Barton was looking for another Houdini artist. I had 4 months under my belt, and I hit him up on Instagram.
Brazen.
Didn't get a
ballsy.
I mean, I had nothing. I had a reel that, you know, but I had 4 months, and I messaged Mark on Slack and said, hey, I'm going to send Barton my stuff. If you can help brother out, let me know.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God.
And, you know, it didn't work out for the best, you know, but yeah, I mean, you're right there. Like he doesn't have to pay for reload for you.
If anything, I would just love to like, this would be like a dream come true in my 20s right now, going going to the studio like on the weekends or maybe like on a Friday and just like sitting there. I'll fucking grab you coffee. I'll do anything, dude.
Do
I
it.
just want to be in this space. I don't really know how to start that introduction. I'd be like, hey,
You guys want
You
coffee?
hit up Barton on Instagram, slide into his DMs and say, hey, I'm in Denton. I love the work you're doing. I'm trying to get into the industry doing the same type of work. Can I come hang out? I'll literally do anything.
Geoff, you're calling me out because it's really funny. I was just on Instagram DMing one of Barton's, this guy who knows Barton. He's a photographer in Dallas. And
Yep.
I was like, dude, I love Barton's stuff. And it's crazy. I've been following you for a while and I didn't know that you knew him. And he's like, dude, you should go hit him up. And I'm like, come on. Like, you don't think he's like, dude, just do it. And I'm like, fuck, this is a double whammy. You've put me between a rock and a hard place.
He responded to me on
No, he
Instagram.
does respond. He does respond. Yeah.
I was like, thanks. I'll keep you in mind. And then then Mark told me like a month later, yeah, they gave it to somebody else.
It's a nice way of telling you to F off.
I figured,
Right.
But yeah, so do it. What about you, Matt?
Me, I have like a couple of different dreams that I would be very, very ecstatic to see come to fruition. But one, for the longest time, I've always wanted to work on movies. That's been my goal. Not necessarily even just Hollywood, because Hollywood's gone a lot of directions, and theaters are going more and more indie as the years go by as well, which is really neat. But I want to be a part of movies in some capacity in the next couple of years. Like I want to be making my first movie.
Do it.
Yeah. That's I know. So I see this little gag you're pulling, all right? And
Good job, Geoff.
all the videos that I watch are like, it's never just gonna come to you, right? Like,
yeah,
you'll never get that experience unless you get that experience. Like, there's just nothing else you can do besides do it. And so, point taken.
I would say I spent over 10 years just consuming content. Like any free time I had that I wasn't playing a game, I would spend watching tutorials.
Wait, games are content too, though. When you're watching the game, you're like, I don't know about you, but I noticed like, ooh, this 3D mesh looks kind of shitty. It's like, I could do this better. This UI interface looks really nice. Yeah.
I never played games though, thinking this is research because I want to work in the games industry.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I interrupted. I'm sorry. So who's your person that you look up to right now?
See, that's kind of difficult to me because I guess
he's gonna say Jimmy. What?
It's not Jimmy. I really look up
Jeff,
to
so it's fine.
Jeff. Yeah, both of you guys, you're my heroes.
It's us.
No, I love. See, I used to want to be a director, but it kind of scares me now a little bit.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways because I didn't understand what being a movie director was, to be quite honest. And like everyone who's into movies when they're young is like, oh yeah, I'll just be the because I have a camera,
So nonchalant.
But it's a lot more than that, which scares me. But one thing that I've learned over the past several years, and becoming a freelancer as well, is that everything that I am doing now was at one point scary to me.
Yeah.
So I try to keep that on the table. But to answer your question, I look up to Quentin Tarantino in a big way. I think what he's done with movies and writing specifically is pretty amazing. And also Todd Phillips, because Joker is one of my favorite movies now. And coming from The Hangover to doing that movie was like, I just love that switch of going from a huge comedy, like it was a big hit, but no one knew who Todd Phillips was. It was just the movie with the drunk guys, and that was that.
Right.
But now his name is like specifically tied with the Joker and Joaquin Phoenix, and I just thought that was a neat transition, I guess. So I look up to him in that way.
That's awesome. So I look up to a lot of artists. I think. So one of the things I try and do every year in January is set a goal for not a resolution. I hate resolutions because they always end by January 3rd for me. But like, what is something that I want to accomplish in 2021? So it could be, so for this year, last year it was go freelance. And I kind of did it the backwards way. I wish I'd had like 6 months of like, saving set aside and just like jumped off and been like, yay,
this is
freelance.
fun.
Yeah. I jumped off and it's like, yay, pandemic. But for 2021, I want to learn Unreal and
that's a game changer.
And start a short. So I've always wanted to do a short movie, fully CG, and just do it. And so I've started both.
Oh my gosh!
Congrats. Oh
yeah, I'm expecting it's going to take me 10 years, but
But it started. That's the most important part.
It
started.
So we actually interviewed this guy. His name is Miran, and he works a lot with kind of, I'd say it's look development. It's kind of post, visuals. And so he actually got into Unreal Fellowship, and
oh nice.
Yeah, he made a short, but like, I don't know if you've probably seen it. It was this kind of went viral. It's this like Spidey skates video that he made. So you've seen it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's wild. Okay. Cool. But yeah, he created this and he's using Redshift, and like when you said Unreal, like I immediately thought of him of like, it's like people do that. It's so wild to think, but like you can make a short film and it's totally doing it. And you're saying you're doing it, which Unreal is a beast in and of its own.
So good for you.
It's like far out. There's so much detail, so many things you can do in it.
Yeah, I saw that. I think so. I decided on the short 1st of January, but what made me think of using Unreal for it was when I saw that MetaHumans thing that they just
we just watched that. Just watched that.
That's wild,
insane,
and especially like, Unreal 5.
Yeah, I'm like, well, that's coming out, so I guess now I got to learn Unreal because I don't want to learn how to do character animation to that level, but I need characters like that for my short because I want it to be, hyper photoreal.
Wow, really?
Do you think that's going to change the industry, Unreal 5, from C4D?
I mean, it's already changed the industry. Look at Mandalorian.
Oh,
as
true.
a perfect example.
Okay.
I'll make a prediction. I hate predictions.
Make the prediction.
In 10 years, I think all rendering will be real time.
I totally believe that. I believe that because real time. What is it? Global illumination that they have. The realistic lighting, instantaneous. That's so freaking wild. Even though we have GPU accelerated, rendering softwares like Octane and Redshift, and the creative freedom that Redshift brings, and just kind of the unbiased render that Octane brings, like you have nothing like an instantaneous delivery that the Unreal 5 is going to give you. And especially with an unlimited polygon count, say goodbye to normal maps. So you're just you're busting down barriers of learning to get to the objective faster. All thanks to good old fashioned coders and programmers.
Shout out to
the
coders
other great
and programmers.
thing is it's free, right?
Yes,
I'm a huge fan of Unreal being free, especially
accessible.
for film, right? Like film and entertainment, it's 100% free. As long as you're not making a game with it, you don't have to pay them anything. And you get everything Quixel makes now.
Yes. Quixel Bridge. Love those guys.
Yeah, I think what spurred my idea to finally get around to a short was I've watched Quixel's Rebirth short at least 200 times. If you haven't seen it, go see it. Like,
we're going to link it in the show notes.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll put it there.
We'll link everything in the show notes.
Unreal.
Nice.
Fitting.
I see what you did there, Jeff.
Nice. Yeah. All the dad jokes right here.
What we needed.
Sweet.
But no, I think you guys are going to go far. Like, I think you guys got it. just enjoy the ride. Like that's the one thing I think no one talks about is it's not getting to point B where you want to be in 10 years. It's the journey from A to B. That's the important part.
Do you listen to Mike Pecci in Love with the Process?
Yep.
He has a podcast that Joey interviewed him on School of Motion.
Okay.
It's called In Love with the Process, but it's just kind of on the lines what you're saying is that you got to love what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, spend 10 hours a day doing this stuff for clients, like, and I've wasted a lot of years doing things that I didn't really love. So definitely find what you love and do it. Hopefully you can get paid for it.
Heard.
Yeah, right. That's what it's all about. I mean, it's like the old adage, like, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life or whatever.
Yep.
I love those adages.
Solid.
Adages?
I love adages too.
Adage.
Adage.
The other word of wisdom I'll leave you with is, I've said this ever since my asshole boss, life is too short for shitty people. So find your close-knit community of really solid people and just have fun and do stuff with them.
Heard. We're writing that. It's going on the wall.
Yeah.
There you go.
The walls of my heart.
And my literal bedroom walls.
Yes, he will. Jimmy will write on the walls. That is not an exaggeration.
Sweet. Well, I've really enjoyed it.
Totally.
And
yes.
Matthew's enjoyed it.
That makes two of us.
Exactly. 1 + 1 does equal 2.
We say that to say thank you, Geoff.
Mm-hmm.
You've been an amazing guest, an amazing mentor. This has been a little mini mentorship session right now.
I love these words of wisdom.
So much appreciate that.
For sure. And thanks for being on the pod.
I'll leave it out there. If you guys need something in the future, reach out.
Geoff, we will absolutely do that. You are part of the Not Network family.
Not Network fam. and with that being said, we want to give you this time to plug in yourself.
Yes.
Geoff, where can the folks at home find you? Give us those plugs.
Okay, so we got geoffburns.com, and it's the correct spelling, so it's GeoffBurns.com, just like the giraffe from Toys R Us that no longer exists. And then Twitter, Instagram. I killed Facebook, so those are my main. Twitter's really the easiest place to find me. But yeah.
GeoffBurns.com, baby.
Yeah.
Get up. Everything's going to be linked in the show notes. So lit.
Mm-hmm. And we got to say our catchphrase. We got a little catchphrase. We got a little nice
Go
saying.
ahead, Jimmy. Kick it off.
We're not networking.
We're making friends.
Thanks for being on the pod.
Thanks for being our friend today, Geoff.
Absolutely. Love it.
And that's it. So there it is. Thanks, Geoff, for being on the podcast. If y'all missed where to find him, we have everything linked in the show notes, so go check it out. And we hope you have a great rest of your day, guys. See you later.